I'm Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of today's newsletter is going to be, when it comes to women, the difference that makes the difference is indifference. Now, what am I talking about here? I'm not talking about being a rude prick to women, but here's what happens. I'll tell you a story, probably at least 10 years ago, when I was still in the real estate industry. We used to do a lot of advertising on the local Fox affiliate in Orlando, Florida. And I remember one time I was at a baseball game in their skybox. And it was at downtown Disney, and it was like during spring training, and I don't even remember the teams that were playing. But as one of their advertisers, they had invited myself, and I can't remember if one of my business partners came with me or not. But anyways, the evening, they did a 10 o'clock news every night, and the evening anchor, the woman, she was there. Now, she's a pretty attractive girl, but she also had the fucking personality of a rock. And around the station, her nickname and what everybody called her, basically behind her back, is they called her the Ice Queen. And I'm not going to say who her name is, because if you watch MSNBC, she's a pretty well-known anchor on the network now. She's done pretty well for herself. But I remember at the time, I don't know if you've ever had this experience, whether you're a man or a woman, you see it in TV, you see it in movies all the time. You have a bunch of really strong guys talking about work or sports or whatever it happens to be. And then a beautiful woman walks into the room, and what happens? These guys all turn into fucking jello. They don't know, they stop acting like themselves, and they start acting like a bunch of little girls, basically. And so, at this, we're in the skybox, and I remember this particular woman, I'll call her Bess. I guess she was cold, and so this guy who was the sales manager, I'll call him George. It just cracks me up, because this guy was such a hardcore negotiator. Like, anytime I was negotiating a new advertising contract, or I wanted to do a buy on a certain time period, he was just the most hard-nosed, all-business negotiator. And a guy, I think he was in his 50s at the time, little bald, short guy, little pudgy, super nice guy, but when it came to business, he was all fucking business. But when Bess came around, it was just amazing. It was like a metamorphosis what happened to this guy. He turned into this super pleaser. And so she's like, oh, I'm a little cold in here. And he just starts going, Bess is cold. Does anybody have a sweater? Anybody got a sweater? Bess is cold. He goes around to the, I don't remember. The skybox was a pretty decent size. I remember that. And there was probably maybe 20, 25 people, maybe 30 people in the skybox. And so he proceeds, like, over 10 minutes to go up to every single woman, every person, like, hey, do you have an extra sweater for Bess? Because she's cold. I'm thinking, are you serious? It's like you make all this money, and you have this huge position of power at the station, and I'm not saying this to him, but I'm thinking, what a fucking pussy. And for me, I mean, at the time, I had figured things out with women, and in business, this it really changed the way I perceived him, because it was the first time I ever saw him interact with a beautiful woman. It was obvious he thought that she was attractive, but I looked at him differently, and the next time I had a negotiation with him, I was a little cockier, just because I felt like he was weaker, which, when it came to women, he definitely was, and this gave me the upper hand. And whether you're at a job interview, or you're in a negotiation for something in your business or the company that you work for, when you can read these signs and the body language and the physiology, especially of the other men around you, and how they don't really understand relationships, they don't understand women, and it affects how they interact with other people, it will give you the upper hand. You'll just come off and you'll feel more confident. And so this is what typically happens. You get a beautiful girl around a guy who doesn't know how to act, and they go from being super confident in being themselves to being something that they're not. And of course, women want to feel safe and comfortable when they're around guys. And men that don't know how to act like themselves, it causes an awkward energy. It causes her to feel awkward. And what's going to happen is if you act this way when a beautiful woman comes around, you freeze up, you tense up, and you just don't know how to handle it. You may become her friend or her male girlfriend, but you'll never become her lover because you give off this energy as a friend, and women want a man who is a man. And when I don't know if you ever watched any of the older movies from like the 70s, like the Dirty Harry movies, the Clint Eastwood ones, you know, the one that made him famous with his line, I think it was the very first one. There's this guy, he robs a store, and so he's got this guy, and he's pointing his big 357 Magnum at him, and he's saying basically, you know, I don't remember in all the chaos if I fired 6 shots or 5. Frankly, I don't really remember. And he says, well, you got to ask yourself, punk, one question. Do you feel lucky? Well, do you, punk? And so he's pointing this gun at him. And he's a very confident, cocky guy. He works his ass off. He's a busy detective. And so when he comes home at night to his apartment, you know, he clashes with his bosses and his superiors, the mayor. He pisses the mayor off. And he's got this really attractive woman that lives in his building, and she's, you know, knocking on his door, shows up with a 6-pack of beer, some takeout food, and he's got that slightly kind of annoyed look on his face, like, oh, jeez. And he's like, okay, and then invites her in, and of course, he lets her seduce him. And if you look at any of the movies from like that period back, or like any of the movies like with Cary Grant, like Philadelphia Story, or some of the movies that he did with Katharine Hepburn, he was great. His bantering was phenomenal with women. Like when beautiful women were around and they liked him and they were interested in him, he was always kind of slightly ignored. I remember one, there's this scene with Audrey Hepburn, and he's older, of course, and he's playing this undercover role with her, and he's investigating. I think he worked for the Treasury Department in this movie. I can't remember the name of it, but it was a fantastic movie. And so he's sitting there on the bed in this hotel room, and he's he's protecting Audrey Hepburn basically, and she just starts kissing him and making out with him, and he goes, "Cut it out! What are you doing?" And she goes, "Oh." And then so a couple seconds go by, and she stops kissing him at this point, and he goes, "What are you doing?" And she says, "You told me to stop." And he goes, "I'm not done complaining yet." I mean, it was beautiful. He's messing with her in a fun and playful way, but it comes off kind of like he's serious. And so she thinks she's serious at first, and he's just messing with her. And that's the way he always was with women. He always communicated that just because she's super hot, it's basically, he put women on probation. Because women always put us guys on probation. I mean, what happens on a first date? Most guys, or like a guy sees a girl that he likes, and already he's thinking about marriage and proposal and all this, what she's going to look like in her wedding dress at the altar before he's even said the first fucking word to her. And what happens is we guys, we tend to give our heart away and our affection to women instead of putting them on probation. And when you give your heart away and your emotions and your affection to a woman who has not earned it, then she's going to treat it like it's not worth anything. I mean, human beings appreciate what we have. We always appreciate what we have to work hard for, and we tend to take for granted the things that come easy. And women are like this. And if you look at the movies like Clint Eastwood that's done, or Cary Grant, or even the movie It's a Wonderful Life, that was done back in I think it was the late 30s, early 40s with Frank Capra and Donna Reed and Jimmy Stewart. And there's a part before they get together and get married where he comes over. He had to stay in town. He didn't go off to college, and so he's running the family savings and loan. And Donna Reed's character, obviously she's much younger than him, and she comes home from college, and she's always had a crush on him since he was a little girl. And she has these designs that I'm going to make him mine. And over the years, I've interviewed and talked to so many women, and it's amazing. They all have this, when they have a guy that they really like and they perceive that the guy is a catch, they'll say things like, oh, I'm going to catch him and make him mine. I mean, they think about it. They plot and they scheme how they're going to reel this guy in. And when you look at how women go through all they go through with their doing their nails and their hair and go to the tanning salon and getting a nice dress and all these things, it's all about to get a man's attention. But what we see in movies and TV is the roles are now reversed, where the men act more like women and the women act more like men. And so you get kids growing up and they're seeing this crap, and more than likely they're probably growing up in a household that's dysfunctional at best. And you wonder why society is so utterly messed up, because they're trying to present this image of where the sexes are all the same, and it just totally destroys the polarity. And you can go out to any bar or nightclub and just watch men interact with women, and they don't fucking get it. They have absolutely no clue. I mean, if you're a catch and you're a successful guy, you're busy, and you're focused on your purpose, and if you're out at a party or you're out at a bar having some drinks with your friends, you're shooting the shit and you're having a good time, blowing off some steam from the day. And if a woman sees you and perceives you as a catch, it's not that you're rude or that you ignore them. It's just that you make them work they have to work harder to show you how much they like you and how much they want you. And what most guys do is they look at a girl and think, oh, she's beautiful, she's perfect. Oh, this is it. I mean, I get emails all the time from guys. They met a girl, they talked to a girl a few years ago. Like, I got one just recently. The guy broke up with his girlfriend, and he's thinking about a girl that he dated or he knew that liked him a few years ago. And they haven't talked. He doesn't even have her number or address. And he's writing me, I'm pretty sure she's the one. I mean, are you fucking kidding me? So what's happening is these guys are showing up and they're giving their heart away to a woman without making her earn it. And a woman wants a man who is a challenge. And if you're easy and you become unglued when you're around women that you like, you may become their friend or their male girlfriend, but I guarantee you'll never become their lover. And so the difference that makes the difference is indifference. You got to be who you are, no matter who you're with. It doesn't matter if you're with a beautiful supermodel or a woman that weighs 400 pounds and his face is covered with acne. I mean, no matter who you're talking to, it's the same you. You can't become unglued and try to be something you're not. A woman wants to be around a guy that's comfortable in his own skin, that likes who he is, that sees himself as a catch, and he perceives himself as a catch. And you just hang back long enough to give that woman the space to where her feelings and her emotions for you rise, and she becomes unsure of herself, and then she'll text you or she'll call you, oh, I was just calling to see what you're doing or what you're up to. And what they're really doing is just trying to give you an opportunity to hopefully give you the chance to make a date with them. They're not going to do everything for you, but some women will. Some women will call you right up and ask you out for dates. It depends on how you carry yourself. I mean, if you're a guy who's successful and popular with women, when you're around a beautiful woman that likes you, I mean, this stuff happens to you all the time, and so it's not a big deal. But for most guys, the average guy that's needy and insecure, like the guy George I was telling you the story about, women never, it's like they look like, oh, he's attractive, and as soon as he opens his mouth, he's one of those guys. He's a needy, weak pleaser. And so, like I said, the difference that makes the difference is indifferent. Make her earn your affection. If you like her and you're unsure if she's into you, you can hang back for a little bit. If she's giving you some signs that show that she's interested in you, by hanging back and not really reciprocating or saying these things, if you're unsure and she sees that she's not really getting your attention, what it causes her to do, she'll do even more.